Well, here we are in another Keymaster series in our summertime. It's Sven Rajala here with Jiannis Papadakis.
Hello.
And now we want to actually go over the CRA, also known as the Cyber Resilience Act, yes, NIS2, and DORA. So Yanni, why don't we start with the Cyber Resilience Act? What's going on with that?
I would say we don't just focus on one, by the way. It's more about this wave of compliance and regulations and directives
Little wave,
coming towards us in the European Union, but of course it affects also businesses which are active within the European Union, so coming from abroad. And most of those directives, regulations have been basically voted or decided upon within this year and will become active towards the end of the year or during the 2025.
And all of them play a role that they require PKI, I would imagine. Yes.
One way or the other, PKI can definitely help on that. I mean, all of them are kind of focusing on security one way or the other. So Cyber Resilience Act is applying to manufacturing sector. And I mean, in the manufacturing sector, meanwhile, we are talking about smart devices, smart machinery, etc. And that means what? That those devices can communicate, right? In the financial sector, where DORA comes in, you have, of course, more towards the software side of the story to make sure that data is communicated in a secure way. Data integrity is provided. While overarching those comes NIS2, which applies to the critical infrastructure in Europe. And I mean, NIS2, compared to the previous version of it, is way broader in terms of who falls under this directive, in terms of being compliant and audited against it.
Oh, so there's even auditing going on with this.
Absolutely, there will be, and I mean there are also quite heavy penalties around that. So everybody who is one way or the other affected by those should better take a good look and be prepared.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, how that translates into PKI, I mean.
Oh yeah, you got my question. I was going to ask that. How does that get into PKI then? Where does PKI play a role in any of this?
Yeah.
Why do I care?
Yeah. Why should I care, or why does PKI fit quite nicely into those? Is let's take Cyber Resilience Act in the manufacturing sector, right? You have devices. Those devices can be sensors, can be any kind of, I don't know,
widgets.
Camera. Yes, exactly.
There are widgets.
They one way have to basically be integrated into an ecosystem, and in order to integrate them into an ecosystem, you have to make sure that you can trust the identities. Okay, you have to make sure that when a device is becoming part of your network, it's the device that it's supposed to be. So here you have the concept of an identity that the device needs to prove against the network. The second thing that comes immediately after is the data that this device is supposed to transmit to any kind of backend infrastructure. I mean, this data is only as valuable as the level of trust that you can put into those, which means that you need data integrity on the one hand, but to some extent, or in many cases, you would also care about confidentiality around those information traveling over the network. You don't necessarily want them to be out there.
The pillars of PKI.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. This directly translates basically into the basic capabilities that a PKI can deliver,
which is authentication, the data integrity, and confidentiality.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Pretty standard operating there.
Yeah. Exactly, and that, of course, increases the whole complexity because I mean,
interoperability is going to be important. You know, obviously how things are enrolling. Is there protocol? Do any of these specify protocols at all, or is that pretty open that it could be whatever works at that point?
As it's more of at the legal level, you know, it's for a good reason. It leaves out addressing specific, let's say, protocols. Nevertheless, it does mention here and there technologies like PKI, for instance. But overall, it's not listing any specific protocols, let's say, in that sense.
And so it's really more policy focused than of having.
It is. It has a technical aspect.
Under that type of policy.
Yeah.
Than anything else. It's not so the technical. It's more the policy side and.
Exactly. I mean, it does have references to technical terms, but it doesn't go down the path.
Not where I'm living on my day-to-day basis.
For a good reason, it doesn't go down the path of explicitly mentioned specific, let's say, enrollment protocols.
Or even algorithms like, oh, you need to be EC, DSA, P256.
I mean, it definitely touches upon the topic of crypto agility and being
agile to migrate to newer ciphers and algorithms.
Also up to date in the sense of what crypto you apply. So
yeah, like no RSA 1024.
Very good example.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's what it actually is. So there is a lot of work to be done there, and there are pressing timelines.
Yeah, what are the timelines? So when did the CRA? When did that go? Was that April this year?
Some of them, yes, if I remember right, that was April, and
then DORA.
If I remember right, the CRA has something like 36 months.
Okay.
Till it has to be basically.
So you got fulfilled. A 36-month runway to be there.
A grace period, so to say.
What about DORA then? Wasn't that 2025?
That was 2025. That was 2025. So indeed, I mean, within a short period of time,
come up already halfway through the year.
Exactly, you have a wave of compliance coming towards you.
Time to go surfing with PKI.
Exactly.
And then what about NIS2 though? Because you said that's overlapping even over the other two with critical infrastructure.
Exactly. I mean, the definition of critical infrastructure has become very broad for good reasons. So it includes financial, for instance. It includes...
Oh, so the DORA and NIS2 really kind of complement.
Overlap and complement.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So one way or the other, from whichever way you take a look at it, you basically have to act upon either your products, in the sense if you want to stay up to date in the market and deliver components to the ones that are consuming it in their solutions, or if you are building up, let's say, if you are operating a power grid utilities company, to make sure that whatever you use within your system brings the capabilities with it, so that you can basically prove your due diligence when it comes to security.
Wow. And I guess that'd all be somewhat auditable too, if they're doing an audit on it to make sure these devices, whatever, fall under that. It's a lot more things to consider now.
Exactly. So a lot more complexity.
Yeah. So obviously, I guess we got a lot of fun coming in with all these new standards in the EU.
Absolutely.
I guess you're going to be pretty busy.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, you have fun and send me a postcard when you get a moment then.
Will do. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Have a good one.